My family excluded me from our annual reunion to babysit my sister's twins, saying, "You're more of a homebody anyway." Sebastian actually contributes to this family. My sister added, "Someone has to stay, and you're obviously the most available." So I left the kids with police. During a fake emergency, now they're all furious, their vacation got ruined. Sup Reddit. So this happened last month and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Not sure if I'm overreacting or if my family really is as messed up as I think they are. Gonna lay out the whole thing and let you guys judge. My 27 males family has this big reunion every year at some fancy resort upstate. It's honestly the one family thing I actually look forward to. We've been doing it since I was maybe 8 or 9, and it's usually pretty fun. All the aunts and uncles show up, cousins I only see once a year, even some family friends. My dad loves it because he gets to show off to his brothers about whatever he's accomplished that year. Last Tuesday, we're all at my parents' house for dinner. Nothing special, just the usual weekly family thing where mom cooks way too much food and dad complains about work while we all pretend to listen. My sister Trina, 26 female, was there with her husband Sebastian, and my brother Nash, 29 male, showed up about 20 minutes late because he can never be on time for anything. So we're sitting around the table eating mom's overcooked chicken. She always cooks it until it's basically leather, but nobody says anything because she gets sensitive about her cooking. Dad's going on about some project at work and how his coworkers are idiots. Normal family dinner stuff. I said, "So about the trip this year, I was thinking." Mom cuts me off mid-sentence like she's commenting on the weather or asking someone to pass the salt. "Oh, Arthur, sweetie, you're not going this year. We need someone to take care of Trina's kids." Trina's kids are 4 years old and they're basically tiny hurricanes. I literally stopped chewing, had a piece of chicken in my mouth, and just sat there trying to process what she said. The way she said it was so casual, like it was already decided and she was just informing me, not asking if I could help or if I had other plans, just telling me I wasn't going to my own family reunion. Dad didn't even look up from his plate, just said, "We thought you'd be perfect for that, Arthur. You're more of a homebody anyway." Like it was some compliment. Like my life was so small, I'd obviously have nothing better to do than cancel my own plans for theirs. "They have a dad, you know," I said, after I managed to swallow. That's when Dad jumped in without even looking up from his plate. "He's coming with us." And that was it. No discussion, no explanation of why this was necessary or fair. Just a statement of fact. Sebastian gets to go to the family reunion, and I get to stay home and babysit. Like it's the most natural thing in the world. I looked around the table and everyone was just eating like nothing had happened. Trina was scrolling through her phone like she wasn't even part of the conversation. Nash was focused on his food, probably relieved it wasn't him getting stuck with kid duty. Sebastian was suddenly very interested in cutting his chicken into perfect little pieces. The thing that really got me was how they just kept talking about the trip after that. Mom started going on about spa appointments she wanted to book. Dad mentioned something about the golf course being redesigned since last year. They're literally planning my family reunion right in front of me while telling me I can't go. Talking about restaurants they want to try, and activities they're excited about, like I'm not even there. "Why can't Sebastian stay with his own kids?" I asked. That's when Trina finally looked up from her phone and actually rolled her eyes at me, like I was being unreasonable for suggesting a father should watch his own children. Because he actually contributes to this family. He deserves a break. Man, that hit different. Here I am, the guy who's helped Nash out of financial trouble twice in the past year. The guy who spent 3 weekends helping them move into their new house. The guy who's been the emergency contact for pretty much everyone in the family because I'm the only one who actually answers my phone. But sure, I don't contribute anything. "Then you stay with your kids," I shot back. She just rolled her eyes harder, like I was the unreasonable one for suggesting a dad should actually parent. Nash decided to pile on too. "Dude, just take the L. Someone has to stay and you're obviously the most available." That pause before available was brutal, like he caught himself about to say something worse. Probably expendable or useless or something equally shitty. But the message was clear. I'm the family member with the least important life, so obviously I should sacrifice my vacation time. I didn't argue much after that. What was the point? They'd clearly already made up their minds and were just informing me of the decision. I finished eating in silence while they continued planning their vacation. My vacation that I was no longer invited to. When I got up to leave, Mom gave me one of her fake, sympathetic looks. "I know it's disappointing, sweetie, but the kids really need someone responsible to watch them. And you're so good with them." Translation, "You're free labor, and we know you won't say no." Dad shook my hand on the way out like we'd just concluded some kind of business deal. We're counting on you, son. This is important for the family. Important for everyone except me, apparently. I drove home in complete silence, trying to figure out how I'd become the family doormat. When did they start assuming I had nothing better to do than be their backup plan? When did my wants and needs become so unimportant that they didn't even bother asking before making decisions about my life? The thing that really messed with my head was how normal they all acted about it. Like this was just how things worked, and I was weird for being surprised. Like the natural order of things was for Arthur to sacrifice whatever he wanted, so everyone else could have a good time. I kept thinking about all the times I'd bailed them out or changed my plans to help with something. All the times I'd been the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who drops everything when family needs help. And this is how they repay that reliability, by taking it for granted and assuming I'll always be available for whatever they need. By the time I got back to my apartment, I was starting to get angry. Not just disappointed about missing the reunion, but genuinely pissed off about how they'd handled the whole thing. The casual way they'd informed me of their decision, the assumption that I had no life worth protecting, the complete lack of consideration for what I might want. The next few days after that dinner were honestly the most frustrating part of this whole thing. Nobody called to check if I was actually okay with watching the twins for 4 days. Nobody asked if I needed anything or wanted to go over the plan. They just started making arrangements around me like I'd enthusiastically agreed to give up my weekend. Thursday morning, I wake up to a text from Trina. Not, hey, thanks for doing this, or I really appreciate the help. Just a list. A literal bulleted list of instructions like I'm some teenager she hired off a babysitting app. The list was insane. Bedtime at 8 p.m. sharp, no exceptions. No sugar after 6 p.m. because it makes them hyper. They need to brush their teeth twice a day and floss once. Mason can't have dairy or he gets stomach issues. Lucas won't eat anything green, so don't even try. On and on for like 15 bullet points. I've been around these kids dozens of times. I know Mason's lactose intolerant and Lucas is picky about food. But Trina's acting like I've never met them before and need detailed instructions on basic childcare. Then she sends another text an hour later. Oh, and Arthur? Don't let them watch too much TV. I'm trying to limit screen time because it's bad for development. This from the woman who uses YouTube Kids as a babysitter every time I've been over there. I've seen her hand them an iPad at restaurants just to get 5 minutes of peace. But suddenly she's concerned about screen time when I'm the one watching them. The really annoying part was how she phrased everything. Not, could you please make sure they brush their teeth? But, they need to brush their teeth twice. Like she was giving orders to an employee instead of asking a favor from her brother. Friday afternoon, Mom calls me while I'm at work. I'm in the middle of trying to finish a project before the weekend, and she just starts talking like I have unlimited time to chat. Just wanted to make sure you're all set for Sunday, sweetie. Trina's bringing the kids over in the morning before we leave for the airport. What if I had other plans? She actually laughed, like genuinely found it funny that I might have a life outside of being available for family emergencies. What plans? You never do anything on weekends anyway. That stung because it's not entirely wrong, but it's not like I'm some hermit with no social life. I just don't broadcast every little thing I do. And even if I was sitting at home doing nothing, that's still my choice about how to spend my time. The conversation went on for like 20 minutes, with Mom giving me more instructions disguised as helpful suggestions. Call if there are any problems. But try not to bother us unless it's an emergency because we'll be busy with family activities. That part really got to me. Don't bother us unless someone's literally dying because we'll be having fun at the thing you can't go to. Real thoughtful. Saturday night, Nash texted me. Thanks for taking one for the team, bro. I owe you one. No, he doesn't owe me one. He owes me like 50 at this point. But Nash has selective memory when it comes to keeping track of favors. He's the kind of guy who asks to borrow 20 bucks and then acts surprised when you bring it up a month later. The whole taking one for the team thing bothered me too. Like this was some sacrifice I'd volunteered for instead of something that got dumped on me without my input. Like I was being a good sport about missing the reunion instead of getting screwed over by people who don't respect my time. Saturday night, I called my cousin Harper. She's probably the only family member who actually gets how dysfunctional this whole dynamic is. Harper went through her own thing with her parents a few years back, where they expected her to be their personal assistant and emotional support system. She finally had to cut them off for like 6 months before they started treating her like an adult. When I told her what was happening, her reaction was immediate. Are you kidding me? They're making you miss the reunion to babysit? Just hearing someone else say it made me realize how messed up it really was. Sometimes when you're in the middle of family drama, you start questioning whether you're being reasonable or if this is just normal family stuff you should deal with. Apparently, I don't contribute enough to deserve a vacation. That's insane, Arthur. You know they planned this, right? Sebastian was always invited. They just needed to figure out who'd watch the kids for free. I hadn't really thought about it like that, but it made perfect sense. The reunion was planned months ago. Hotel reservations, flight bookings, all that stuff gets arranged way in advance. They would have known Sebastian was coming, which means they always planned for me to stay home. They just waited until the last minute to tell me. You should just leave, Harper said. Like literally just not be there when they try to drop the kids off. I laughed because it seemed so extreme. But she wasn't joking. We talked for over an hour about it. She told me stories about standing up to her own parents and how liberating it was once she stopped being everyone's backup plan. How much better her relationships got once people had to actually ask for help instead of just expecting it. Family doesn't mean you have to be everyone's doormat, she said. By the time I hung up, I was actually considering it. Just not being home when they showed up Sunday morning. Let them deal with the consequences of their poor planning, an assumption that I'd always be available. But then I thought about the twins getting caught in the middle of whatever drama would happen, and I felt guilty. It's not their fault their parents are entitled, and their grandparents don't think I deserve to go on vacation. That was probably my first mistake, feeling guilty about a situation I didn't create, feeling responsible for other people's poor planning and unrealistic expectations. Sunday morning, I woke up early and cleaned my apartment, made sure I had enough food for the kids, charged my phone in case of emergencies, basically prepared to give up 4 days of my life so everyone else could have fun without me. I kept thinking about what Harper said, though, about how they'd planned this for months without telling me, about how they just assumed I'd be fine with it, because I always am, about how nothing would change unless I made it change. Little did I know I was about to get the perfect opportunity to do exactly that. Sunday morning arrives, and I'm at Trina's house at 8 a.m., sharp like we planned. I actually got there a few minutes early because I wanted to get this handoff done quickly and not drag it out. The sooner they left, the sooner I could start counting down the hours until they came back. The scene inside their house was pure chaos. Trina's running around throwing random stuff into suitcases like she's evacuating from a natural disaster. Sebastian's loading the car and checking his phone every 30 seconds to make sure they're not running late for their flight. The twins are already in full meltdown mode because they can sense something's happening but don't really understand what. Okay, so they had breakfast already, Trina says, without even looking at me while she's shoving toiletries into a bag. Well, kind of. Mason didn't want eggs, so he just had juice, but he'll be hungry again soon. And Lucas ate but then threw half of it on the floor because he said it was yucky. Great. So they're starting the day hungry and cranky. Perfect foundation for the next 4 days. She hands me a stack of papers that looks like she printed out half the internet. Emergency contacts, pediatrician information, insurance cards, detailed schedules that look like they were designed for running a small military operation. There's even a laminated sheet with photos of what their rashes look like, so I can tell the difference between normal kid stuff and something that needs medical attention. They've been really difficult lately. Lots of tantrums. Just ignore them when they get like that. Thanks for the heads up after I agreed to watch them. Would have been nice to know before I committed to 4 days of this that the kids were going through some kind of behavioral phase. Sebastian comes in looking all relaxed in his vacation clothes. He's got that excited energy people get when they're about to go on a trip they've been looking forward to. Thanks, man. Really appreciate this. The parents show up right on schedule to collect Trina and Sebastian for the ride to the airport. Mom comes in acting like I'm some kind of hero for watching my own nephews. You're such a good brother, she says, while giving me a hug that lasts too long. This means so much to the family. Dad shakes my hand like we just negotiated a business contract. Real firm grip, serious eye contact, the whole thing. Take care of those boys. We're counting on you. And then they're gone. Just like that. Car pulls out of the driveway and I'm standing in Trina's living room with 2 4-year-olds who are now asking when mommy's coming back. The first day wasn't terrible, which probably should have been a warning sign. Took about an hour to get them both settled down, but that's not bad for kids who are sleeping somewhere different than usual. I actually thought maybe this wouldn't be so awful after all. Monday morning, I realized how wrong I was. Mason woke up at 6 a.m., terrified from a nightmare about closet monsters eating his dinosaur, which woke up Lucas too. Both boys refused to go back to sleep. Breakfast turned into chaos when Mason and Lucas kept changing their minds about cereal and toast, each not wanting the same thing as the other. The rest of the day was constant arguing and negotiating over every little thing. Attempts to stick to Trina's planned schedule failed miserably. Quiet time didn't exist, and their educational activities turned into flushing the toilet repeatedly. Basically, it was a full day of managing 2 tiny tyrants in meltdown mode. By Monday evening, I was exhausted, like physically and mentally drained in a way I haven't felt since college finals week. These kids have infinite energy, and they can sense weakness. The minute I sat down to rest, one of them would need something or start fighting with the other one. That's when I got a text from Harper. "How's it going with the demon spawn? Actually, I might need you for something else." What kind of something else? I stared at my phone for a long time before typing back. I was thinking about what she'd said about just leaving, about not being there when they expected me to be, about making them deal with the consequences of their assumptions. "Remember what you said about teaching them a lesson?" I drove the boys to Grandma's later that afternoon under the excuse of a visit. She's 78, sharp as a tack, and basically the only person in our family who's immune to Dad's guilt trips. She opened the door wearing this giant housecoat that looked like a rejected curtain and just raised an eyebrow when she saw the twins. "Unexpected," she said, stepping aside. I told her everything. She didn't interrupt once, just stirred her tea, nodding like she'd been waiting for this day since 1998. When I finished, she said, "About damn time you grew a backbone. Want me to fake a heart attack next?" I actually choked on my coffee. She waved it off. "Relax. Just say I tripped over my cat again. I'll even keep my phone off so they can't check." The woman was excited to help. Swear she hasn't smiled that wide since Dad got grounded in high school for stealing her Buick. Tuesday was going to be a very interesting day. Tuesday morning, the twins somehow managed to be even worse than Monday. By noon, I was seriously questioning every life choice that had led me to this moment. I kept thinking about my family at the resort, living their best life while I'm here getting destroyed by two tiny humans who seem determined to break my spirit. That's when Harper called. "Emergency," she said, and I could hear something different in her voice. Like she was trying to sound panicked, but also trying not to laugh. "I'm at the hospital with Grandma. She fell and hurt her hip. The doctors are saying it's pretty serious." "Wait, what? Is she okay? Which hospital?" "Arthur," Harper said in a completely different tone. "Remember what we talked about?" "Oh. OH. Right." I looked at the twins who were now fighting over a plastic dinosaur, like it was the last piece of food on Earth. "Is she... How bad is it?" I asked, making sure to sound worried enough that the kids would notice. "Bad enough that you need to get here now. I can't handle this alone, and Mom's freaking out." Both kids stopped fighting and looked at me with those big concerned eyes that kids get when they sense something serious is happening. "Boys, we have to go," I told them. "Grandma's in the hospital and Uncle Arthur needs to help her." The next part was probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do. These kids didn't do anything wrong. They're just being normal 4-year-olds in a stressful situation. But I was so angry at their parents and my parents and the whole situation that I was willing to do whatever it took to make a point. The drive to the police station was probably the longest 15 minutes of my life. My hands were shaking, and I kept second-guessing myself. What if this backfired? What if I got in trouble for abandoning the kids? What if they were traumatized by this whole thing? But then I thought about sitting at that dinner table listening to my family plan their vacation while telling me I couldn't go. I thought about Trina saying I don't contribute to the family. I thought about years of being everyone's backup plan, an emergency contact, and never getting any consideration in return. I walked up to the front desk with both twins holding my hands. "I need help," I said to the sergeant. "I'm watching my nephews, but there's a family emergency and I can't reach their parents. My grandmother's in the hospital and I need to get there, but I can't bring the kids." She looked at the boys and then back at me. Professional, but not unfriendly. "Where are the parents?" "They're traveling. I've been calling, but they're not answering. I think they're on a plane or something." Not technically a lie. They might have been on some kind of excursion where they couldn't answer their phones. Or maybe they were just ignoring calls because they were on vacation and didn't want to deal with anything from home. Any other family members who could take them? Everyone's traveling together. It's just me, which was completely true. Everyone who might normally help was at the same resort having a great time. The sergeant nodded like this was a fairly normal situation. "We can hold them here until we reach the parents or another family member. Do you have contact information?" I gave her Trina's cell number and Sebastian's number. Told her about the resort but said I didn't have the hotel information with me. Also completely true. I really didn't know which specific hotel they were staying at because nobody had bothered to give me those details. Lucas was trying to be brave, but I could see he was scared. "When is Mommy coming back?" "Soon. Really soon." I hugged them both and walked out. Time to see how much my family really cared about those emergency contact responsibilities they dumped on me. The first call came at 4:30 that afternoon. I was sitting in my apartment when Trina's number popped up on my phone. I let it go straight to voicemail because I wasn't ready to deal with that conversation yet. Actually, that's not entirely true. I was kind of excited to hear the voicemail because I knew it was going to be pure chaos. And man, it did not disappoint. Trina was practically screaming into the phone. You could hear the panic and rage in her voice like someone had just told her the world was ending. Arthur, what the hell? The police called me and said you abandoned my children. Where are you? Why aren't you answering your phone? Call me back right now. The second voicemail came about 10 minutes later. This time, it was Sebastian trying to be the reasonable one, which was hilarious because you could hear Trina losing her shit in the background. Hey man, we got a call from the police about the boys. Something about a family emergency? Just call us back so we can figure this out. Then Trina again, and this time she was completely unhinged. I swear to God, Arthur, if something happens to my kids because of your bullshit, I will never forgive you. How could you just leave them with strangers? By 6 p.m., my phone was going crazy. I turned my phone off and ordered more pizza. Harper came over around 8 with ice cream, and this huge grin on her face like Christmas morning. So how'd it go? She asked while making herself comfortable on my couch. Pretty sure I just destroyed my entire family. For the first time in forever, I wasn't worried about what emergency someone was going to call me with or what favor someone was going to ask. I was just hanging out like a normal person without any family drama. The next morning, I finally turned my phone back on. 47 missed calls, 63 text messages. My voicemail was completely full. The best part was reading them in order because you could see the exact moment when panic turned into fury. When they realized I wasn't going to immediately fix everything and make it all better like I always do. Around noon, Harper called with an update. Trina's flying back today. Emergency flight. Cost her like $800. How do you know? Nash posted about it on Instagram. Something about family crisis and unexpected travel expenses. He's trying to make it sound like some unavoidable tragedy instead of consequences for their own actions. An hour later, my phone rang again. Dad's number. I let it ring and checked the voicemail after. This one was different. He wasn't yelling, but somehow that made it worse. He sounded exhausted and angry and completely fed up. What is wrong with you? You destroyed our vacation. You embarrassed the entire family. People are asking questions, and I don't know what to tell them. Your sister had to leave her first real vacation in 2 years because you couldn't handle watching 2 kids for a few days. This is the most selfish thing you've ever done. Then Mom called crying. The voicemail was just sobbing and asking why I would do this to the family. Why I would hurt innocent children to get back at their parents. How she didn't raise me to be cruel. Nash left a message too. Dude, what the hell? Everyone's asking where you are and why Trina had to leave. The whole family reunion is ruined now because everyone's talking about this drama instead of having a good time. This is so messed up. By evening, Harper had the full scoop through the family gossip network. Apparently, Trina had to sit through some kind of interview with Child Services about why her children were left with someone who had a medical emergency and couldn't be reached for hours. The really beautiful part was that she had to explain why she left her kids with someone she couldn't trust to handle emergencies properly. Made her look like either a terrible judge of character or a neglectful parent who doesn't plan ahead. Harper said the whole extended family at the reunion was asking uncomfortable questions. Why wasn't Arthur there? Where did he go during this emergency? Why did Trina have to leave early? What kind of family emergency involves the police and child services? My parents tried to spin it as me having some kind of mental breakdown, but that just made them look worse. If they thought I was unstable, why would they trust me with their grandchildren? If they didn't think I was unstable, then why are they lying about it now? The best part was that nobody had a good answer. They couldn't admit they ditched me to babysit without asking because that made them look selfish. They couldn't say I was unreliable because then why did they leave the kids with me? They couldn't explain the emergency because there wasn't really an emergency to explain. So they were stuck trying to manage damage control while on vacation, dealing with family members asking pointed questions about their parenting and planning skills. Meanwhile, I'm at home eating pizza and watching Netflix like nothing happened. Harper stayed over that night, and we spent hours going through all the messages and voicemails. You realize there's no going back from this, right? Harper said around midnight while we were finishing the ice cream. Good. I don't want to go back. And I meant it. For the first time in years, I felt like I had some control over my own life. Like I wasn't just waiting around for the next family emergency or guilt trip or request for help that I couldn't refuse. The silence was kind of addictive. No constant buzzing from my phone. No voicemails full of other people's problems. No text messages asking for favors disguised as family bonding. I slept better that night than I had in months, probably because I wasn't stressed about what chaos I'd have to deal with the next day. So after all the chaos from last week with Trina flying back and the family meltdown, I figured things would calm down. Calm. Maybe they'd realize they screwed up and leave me alone for a while. I was wrong. Wednesday evening, I'm sitting at home when I hear this aggressive pounding on my door. Not knocking, full on banging like someone's trying to break it down. I look through the peephole and there's my entire nuclear family standing on my doorstep, looking like they're about to storm a castle. Mom, Dad, and Trina. All three of them with that look people get when they've worked themselves up into righteous anger and convinced themselves they're completely in the right. I almost didn't open the door. Should have just pretended I wasn't home. But curiosity got the better of me, and I wanted to see what they'd possibly have the nerve to say after everything that went down. Big mistake. Dad pushes past me into my apartment like he owns the place. Doesn't ask, doesn't wait to be invited, just bulldozes right in. Mom and Trina follow behind him, and suddenly my living room feels way too small for all this family drama. They'd clearly planned this whole thing out, probably spent hours discussing strategy and talking points. Dad starts pacing around like he's conducting some kind of business meeting. Mom sits down on my couch without asking and puts on her disappointed mother face. Trina just stands there glaring at me like I personally ruined her entire life. The whole thing was surreal. Here they are in my apartment, acting like I'm the one who's out of line. Like showing up uninvited and demanding explanations is totally normal family behavior. Trina looked absolutely terrible, like she hadn't slept or showered since getting back from the trip. Hair all messy, wearing sweatpants and some old t-shirt, dark circles under her eyes. She starts going off about how messed up my actions were and how I don't understand what I've done. Dad's doing his intimidation routine, talking about consequences and responsibility like I'm some teenager who got caught doing something stupid. Mom's working the guilt angle, going on about family values and how they raised me better than this. The whole time I'm just standing there thinking about how absolutely insane this situation is. These people excluded me from a family event, dumped their kids on me without asking, then disappeared for days without giving me proper contact information. And now they're mad at me for the consequences of their poor planning. They kept calling what I did a tantrum, like I was some spoiled kid who broke his toys because he didn't get his way. They couldn't seem to wrap their heads around the idea that maybe, just maybe, their behavior was the actual problem here. The best part was listening to them try to justify everything. According to them, I should have just figured something else out when Grandma had her emergency. I should have called someone else, or brought the kids with me, or handled it better somehow. Never mind that they were the ones who were unreachable. Never mind that they'd put me in an impossible situation without any backup plan. Mom kept going on about how the kids were confused and scared. Dad was obsessed with their precious reputation and what people in town were saying. Trina wanted me to call child services and tell them it was all a misunderstanding, so she'd look better. Basically, they wanted me to clean up the mess they'd created and take all the blame for their screw-ups. Same old pattern, just with higher stakes this time. I let them talk for about an hour. Figured I'd give them enough rope to hang themselves with. And boy did they ever. By the end of their little intervention, they'd made it crystal clear that they still didn't think they'd done anything wrong. Still thought I was the problem. Still expected me to apologize and fix everything. That's when I'd heard enough. Get out of my house, I said. Simple as that. When they acted all shocked and said we weren't done talking, I explained that yeah, we definitely were. Walked to my front door, opened it, and told them to leave before I called the cops again. You should have seen their faces. Like they genuinely couldn't believe I was standing up to them. Like the natural order of the universe was Arthur backing down and apologizing whenever the family got upset. Trina tried to get the last word on her way out. Something about how I'd regret this when I was old and alone. I told her I'd take my chances. Mom did her crying routine and begged me not to throw the family away. Dad tried to act tough and said this wasn't over. Then they were gone. Just like that. Probably spent more time planning the visit than they actually got to stay in my apartment. I sat on my couch afterwards, just processing what had happened. My hands were shaking, but not from fear or anxiety. More like adrenaline from finally telling them exactly what I thought after years of keeping my mouth shut. The silence since then has been incredible. No calls, no texts, no messages through other family members. Complete radio blackout for almost 2 weeks now. And you know what? I'm sleeping better than I have in years. No constant anxiety about what emergency someone's going to call me with. No guilt trips landing in my inbox every few days. No last-minute requests for favors disguised as family bonding opportunities. I've been hanging out with people who actually want me around instead of people who just want what I can do for them. Started making plans that don't involve being anyone's backup plan or emergency contact. Even been talking to this girl from work about maybe taking a weekend trip somewhere. The weirdest part is how normal everything feels now. Like I didn't realize how much mental energy I was spending on family drama until it was gone. Now I can just focus on my own life instead of constantly managing everyone else's problems. Sometimes I think about Mason and Lucas and hope they're doing okay, but they've got parents and grandparents to take care of them. It's not my job to be their safety net anymore. My family made a choice when they decided my time and feelings didn't matter. When they planned their vacation around excluding me and then expected me to be grateful for the chance to provide free childcare while they had fun without me. Now I'm making my choice. And my choice is to build a life that doesn't revolve around other people's guilt trips and unrealistic expectations. They can keep their dysfunction and their fake family values. I'm finally free of being their designated problem solver and emotional punching bag. For the first time in forever, I'm actually excited about the future instead of just trying to survive whatever crisis comes next. And that feels pretty damn good.